We just ease into it. And then just tipping. That's it. So we just want it to always be active. So there's no sense of just falling, but of pulling. Shortening one side of my body, really tightening it, trying to pull the end of the stick towards my hip. So when you get to the limit, you can just sort of work it, bounce into it. It's like 1, 2, 3. Good. Now let's just do just a few more twists. So 1, 2, 3. And now let's just do a few bends backwards and forwards. So just really sort of bowing the spine, but by pulling the belly in as far as you can. And then just arching backwards. And again, you can sort of bounce into it. So like 1, 2, 3. And then now let's just do, so just pushing the stick up and down, but like with a real feeling that it's like really heavy. So it's like I really have to concentrate to get it up. And then here it's like it's being held up and I have to really pull to get it down. So now I'm really pulling. So there's a sense that I have to get underneath it. So I have to really be in my belly so that that can push up. And then it's here, it's as though I have to get on top of the stick and almost be looking down on it in order to give it a good pull. And just work the stick. So you're pulling it or pushing it and twisting it. We want a mind that can readily activate the spirit just by visualizing. Yeah, so if there really was resistance, then the spirit would have to charge up just to get the job done. You'd need just a bit more effort than you're used to. So I just imagine it there in order to get my spirit aroused. So to pull it down, I have to really tighten my belly, explosively pull it in. And then here to get it up, I have to really explode my lower back. Now let's just try a few where we just drop it down the back just to open the shoulders. Yeah, so just adjust the distance between your hands so that you can just about do it without having to bend your arms. Want it to be a little bit difficult. I saw a nice phrase recently, just learn to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. Okay, now let's just try some, just pulling and pushing. So this is really just having to just relax so that the left and the right hands can sort of separate from each other. So it's, so, you know, they're sort of pulling at each other, pushing at each other, they're playing with each other. And that play will produce an energy that I can then just wriggle around my body, direct it where I want. It can be really, really gentle. So this is basically what's happening when someone does craniosacral on you. They've got these two hands that are not locked together. Both hands are sort of listening. And that sort of resonance between these two independent hands listens, a bit like dowsing, you know, when you see someone dowsing for water. They have to be relaxed enough for the two rods to be independent. And just pulling. And pushing. And just sort of twist the stick a little bit. So always, it's always working in as many different planes and dimensions as possible. And just link it in with the breath. So you can use the pressure to really sort of deepen the breathing, to relax the breathing, lengthen the breathing. And now let's just try the same principle, same idea, but just with the fingertips. Yeah, so just like placing the fingertips together. You know, the gentlest of pressures, you can produce a slight push of the left hand into the right, the left fingertips into the right fingertips, or like a pull, almost like imagine the fingertips are glued together and you're trying to separate them. And you can just coordinate it with the breathing. So Like you're pulling on the in-breath. And then the gentlest of pressures on the out-breath. And then you can just use that anywhere. So just sort of place the hands on the knees. Then you can just, with the breathing, so as you breathe out, there's the gentlest of pressures. So you're sort of pressing into the knees very gently. And then as you breathe in, you can imagine trying to pull the hands away from the knees. So this is a sort of mind that we'd like to develop. So a mind that is just totally with the body. So a physical mind. Bright and empty, functioning naturally. The mind does not exert itself. It is not a place of thinking, difficult for reason and emotion to fathom. So the mind is being used to heal, to harmonize, to balance, to equilibrate, not to make choices. Okay, so let's stand up now. So let's start with riding horse. Yeah, so you're producing a container. So your back is containing your front. So normally we're front heavy. Our front is coming out, we're advancing by stepping out of our front. So in Tai Chi and meditation, we're just trying to sort of just shroud ourselves in the back. So the back becomes the coating or the container. And inside there's my soft underbelly. So sink and relax into the legs. So feel this, the back spreading out from the spine, like you've just got loads of ribs all the way down your body. And so your arms are like an image of that. And then the heavy sacrum. So the bum in, it's really more than bum in. It's like the lower back is plumb erect. The sacrum is the plumb on the end of the plumb line, and your spine is the line. So the lower back should be straight and vertical. And when it is, then the sacrum will drift forward slightly. Yeah, so the legs have to be strong enough not just to take the sacrum down into it, but to allow it to just angle down, because it's naturally pushed back by our legs pushing from the ground all the time. So when I relax and just let this forwards, there's a natural lift in the heart. There's parts of our body that tend to sort of shorten. And, you know, Tai Chi is notorious for it. Producing stiffness, really, or lack of flexibility. The back, you know, so a Tai Chi master will generally be, you know, it'll be really expanded from the back, but his hamstrings will be tight, you know, because he's never straightening his legs are always bent. So we just have to make sure that we attend to the parts that will tend to shorten with age and shorten with Tai Chi. So we'll do some of the stretches later. But particularly what I'm finding is the top of the foot. So what would be the back of the foot, so the bit you can see. Yeah, so getting a real sense that the toes are not just flat on the ground with the pad of the toe, but like the tips of the toes are trying to sort of grip into the ground. Yeah, so most of us have basically toes that don't really function. It's interesting watching little kids, like some of Ty's friends, they just live in a kibbutz. They've never worn shoes in their life. And they can just walk on anything. And it's really interesting watching, you know, if their foot hits a stone or a rock, then the foot just naturally yields to it. The toes sort of take the shape of the thing that they're on. So the toes aren't encased within a shoe. The toes are really active. So we want this sense that we can extend the front of the foot, not just grip with the toes, but really lengthen the toes out and then just let them curl in. So there's a sense that it's the tip of my toes that's trying to touch the ground rather than the pad of the toe. And then you can feel that the bubbling well is wanting to pull up from the ground. It's drawing. It is like a well. It's drawing something from the ground. Okay, now let's just breathe. So abdominal breathing. So a real sense that it's your abdomen that is the lung. So here my belly is expanding, and then here my belly pulls in to push the air out. So my belly is the lung and the diaphragm. And then we just want to reverse the breathing. So you breathe in now as you pull in. So everything is pulling towards the dantian. The front of your belly is pulling in. Your diaphragm is pulling down towards the dantian. And your lower diaphragm, which is beneath the dantian, is sucking up towards it. And then everything relaxes out as you breathe out. And then you're breathing in. So now really increasing the internal pressure, reducing the volume, and then just relaxing it out. As you increase the pressure, as you pull in, just squeeze some of that pressure into the kidneys. So you've got two kidneys, so either side. So I'm breathing in and I'm squeezing back into my kidneys. So when you breathe in, everything breathes in. The air's coming into the lungs, the energy's coming up from the bubbling wells. and the belly's pulling in. So I want to feel the belly activating the breathing. And the active part of the belly is the pulling in. This is just like a relaxation phase, which you can extend, press out. This is the power phase, the gathering of the energy, and then this is the exploding the energy out. So let's just bring it back to riding horse. Heavy sacrum. So just feel your lower back. You know, you should be able to get, by now, we should be able to get it pretty flat. So the sense that the Min Meng is trying to sort of extend backwards. So we just sort of make sure it's right, and then just let it just drift forwards a little bit, which you can just feel as your upper back going backwards, so that you don't drift too much onto the front of the foot, because we still want to root through the heels. So I am extending into the ground through my heels, and the ground is extending up into me through the front of the foot, through the bubbling well. And then I come into that rising by just coming off the heels. So I just sink forwards. Again, just trying to keep the sacrum just relaxed, just hanging down. So I'm still rooting, but now I'm rooting through the front of the foot. So I should be able to hold this indefinitely. And just relax. Relax so that you feel the tremble. You don't want to block out the instability by becoming tense. We just relax through it. The mind is still, but the body is not really. The body's ooh. And now let's just rock back onto the heels one at a time, but really extend the heel backwards. So I think of that claw of the eagle that cuts down and comes underneath the foot. And then I can just make an exercise of this. I can lift my heel, try and visualize extending it backwards and then through the ground and under. In order to extend the heel, to extend the claw of the heel, I have to sort of stick my bum out. I have to activate my spirit, so my eyebrows raise and my bum goes back. So my tail sticks back a little bit, points backwards, and then my tail comes under in order to bring the heel under. So the tail is responsible really for the activity in the heels. It's an activity that is within the container of riding horse. Yeah. So let's come back to riding horse. So I can be in riding horse, which is like a sort of it's like the bigger picture, with my tail hanging down, my sacrum hanging down, my body feeling that it's flowing backwards, my arms reaching forwards to balance that. But within the container, anything can be happening. You know, I can be sticking my bum out within the container, but my sacrum is still flat. So there's like these different dimensions of activity. And it's the same with the form. So, you know, the form that we learn, the short form or the long form, that's like the bigger, it's the broad picture. But then within that, there can be all these details. You know, you can bring in as many figures of eights and as much high frequency as you like, as long as it's contained. Okay, let's just come forwards again. Now just coming onto the toes. And now feel this, it's because you're bringing the weight into the front of the foot, the toes can really sort of extend. And then just with your mind, just get the tips of the toes to feel like they're sort of coming onto the ground. You're coming over like that. The same as we went back and under with the heels. Now you're extending forward with the toes and just visualizing pulling them down. So what it does, it gives you this sense that your back is coming round and enclosing. So it's coming in like this. Yeah, so that's very important. But just keeping your energy contained, keeping it quiet and contained. Because we're, you know, the thing that the noisy mind does, it just means that we're leaking all the time. Not just leaking, but it's like you're insulting the world. You know, the ego, your chatty mind, is an affront to nature. You're hurting the world. You know, the more Tai Chi I do, the more convinced I am that this is, you know, mind in Danchen, it's all that. The Danchen really has to draw in. So the more I can pull this in, the more my back can extend. And then just rocking back. So heel and heel. And so you're intending. Your mind is intending the visualization. And the intention is just your attention with your spirit, activated by your spirit. So we're just making, that beautiful phrase of Leong's, imagination becomes reality. So with my intention, I can make these claws real and get them to really activate. So it's not in the exercise. It's not in the physicality. It's in the mind producing a different body, producing a transformation. My feet are becoming talons. Okay, so let's just bring it back. So just draw this in. Yeah, it's the problem with being human, really, is that we're just full of ourselves, yeah. And so the sense here, this withdrawing, that's like just withdrawing the self and then just becoming energy or becoming animal or becoming something different, becoming something other than this lump. So this is the sense in which Taoism is just very different from Buddhism. You think of the Buddha sitting there with his big belly, just sort of, with this sort of subtle smile on his face. The Taoists, when they meditate, they don't look like that. They look grumpy and mean and ugly. They're not radiating benevolence or whatever. They're just tight, they're contained. They're ready to fight. So this is what we want. So we're first and foremost spirit. So all the old masters, they all said that. So you are withdrawing. You're not sitting there like the Lord of all creation. There's a draw. You're disappearing. And because of that physical disappearance, your energy really comes out. So it's not compassionate, really. It's just indifference, it's just. Just figure of 8 in the hips, but really just sort of through the turning. So I'm trying not to move side to side too much, just want to stay in the middle and just turn and just, again, with my intention, assisted by my hands, I can just squeeze this figure of 8 along this pathway. So it's my turning, and my turning is produced by my belly because my belly has split into two, so a left side and a right side. So now if I start pulling this side of my belly, it will draw me, it will turn me this way. So if I pull this side and just relax this side, then it will produce a turn to the right. And then if I pull the left side of my belly and relax the right side, it will produce a turn to the left. So what I want to do is just try and feel, try and get everything that I do to come from action in the belly. So if I want to produce turns, I have to be able to split the belly into two sides, left and the right. So when I pull the belly in, there's the feeling that it's doing this to the spine, but it's not just bringing the head over, it's bringing the tail under. So the spine is sort of folding like this. Yeah, so I just want to make sure I've got this bit, the bottom part of it, as well as the top part, because the top part is easy to feel. Yeah, so energy from the spine, from the back. The more I can withdraw my front, the more my back will come into action. Yeah, so we just have to try and really feel the ego. So when I draw my belly in, basically what I'm doing is withdrawing the self. So as I pull here, I'm just shrinking, and then I just become all back. I got, like I've got these sort of limbs like a spider or something, and they're big and they're really emanating from my spine. You know, the image of the middle-aged, middle class, comfortable, complacent adult with the belly that protrudes flabbily and slackly, and the lower back that is under constant strain because it's having to support this overweight smugness. It's like the complete opposite of that. So that's what I mean by bourgeois. It's not so much middle class as middle-aged. Yeah, so we just have to maintain the tightness, maintain the vigilance of someone that's just ready to fight, ready to flee, ready to fuck, just ready. So in order to start thinking to yourself, you have to sort of relax the belly. You have to just release that inner tone. So if we can just maintain that inner tone, then at least for the duration of our practice, we're internally quiet. If there are words present in the mind, then you're not in your center. Because your center is quiet, dark, and still. And most people are terrified of it, which is why their lives are anything but. And then just let it become the figure of 8 exercise. Yeah, so basically, you don't sort of turn as much. Yeah, so just with your mind, you're intending the bottom of the figure of 8 underneath your foot. The bottom of the figure of 8 is for the root, and the top of the figure of 8 is for your expression, for the energy that comes out of you. So this hand is digging down into this root, and this hand is coming out and expressing some energy. So as one hand gets under the ground, the other hand gets over the head. All the time, just keeping the belly tight so it's supporting the lower back. If you lose tone in the belly, then the bum will go out. The leg pits open. And then the last thing, you just bring your mind just back to the heavy sacrum. Because whatever adjustment you make, whatever local adjustment you'll make will tend to stick the bum out a little bit. So at the end, you just think, okay, just heavy, hang it down. Okay, now let's just bringing it up. Feel the dantian, and then I just tighten the dantian. I tighten the dantian to pull me into this leg. So it's like this side is tightening to pull me into this leg, and then this side tightens to pull this leg up. So let's just step a few times. To sink, we just want to activate the belly when we sink. So when I tighten my belly, it will tend to sort of concertina me. I'll be pulling up like this. So it pulls me down into the leg. And then if I come into that leg, then I tighten here, it will actually pull this leg up. And then I can just step with that and then tighten here. And then tighten here to pull the leg up. I tighten here to pull myself preferentially into this leg. And then I tighten here, and that will pull this knee up. And then there's like a little bit of thymus, a little bit of spirit. And this is the masculine. This is the sperm that's swimming out. And then as soon as I touch the ground, that spirit is earthed out of me, if you like. And now I use the belly to pull myself into this foot. And then I use the belly here to pull this foot up. So tightening here to draw the knee up. And then just extend it. That's a little bit of spirit. So when you activate the spirit, the eyebrows will tend to rise. John had all these exercises for the eyebrows. And then pulling here to get into this leg, and then pulling here to get this leg to pull up. If you can't feel it, then at least visualize it, because the visualization is the beginning. The imagination becomes reality. So you have to work with the visualization in order to activate the body, and it takes time. So here I tighten here, that brings this knee up, and then so this is that it's got a playful quality, but it's also courageous, because you're sort of poking your foot out of your territory. So the foot is poking somewhere, and I can't quite see it because my eyes are here. So it's very much in my peripheral vision. Yeah, so I can get a sense of movement, but I can't really see any details. And then I pull here, and that draws me into the foot. And then I pull here, that pulls the foot up. Step. There's a set, your bum flicks out, or the tail really. It's like the tail is playful. So it's like, ooh, it just pokes out a little bit, like this sort of, like a cat's tail or a dog's tail. You know, so it just pokes out, and then and just feel the spirit that's involved in activating the pull. So the spirit is there in everything, especially at the beginning of things. We want our actions to be initiated by just a burst of spirit, very pure, clean, delicate spirit. So here, as I activate this muscle, again, my eyebrows flare a little bit. So it pulls down, and then here, this pulls. And then here, this is just a bit more, if you like, a bit more. So this has to be brave and a little bit fierce. So more male, if you like. And then as soon as I touch the ground, then, I pull in here, and then I pull in here. But everything requires spirit, but there's the male spirit and there's the female spirit, and they're quite different. So basically, the female spirit is drawing towards, and the male spirit is sort of bursting out. Yes, that's the basic difference. Yes, I pull here, I pull here, and then here something bursts out of me, and then instantly I'm pulling again. Okay, now let's just try just bringing the knee up. So again, with a count of 3, because the most important thing really is just, we have to really recondition the body, because this part of the body, the lower back, from the lumbar spine really with the sacrum and the tail, it's, on most people, it's almost fused. There's so little mobility there. And we really want to get it to be able to breathe. So that requires this to be strong, but it also requires the mind to be more quiet than average. Because the reason people have got a lot of tension here is to basically support the mind that's just dispersed and distressed, distracted. So if you want this area to open up, you have to attend to this. Through meditation is the only way I know of. So here we're just bringing the knee up. So 1, 2, and then really pulling the belly in to get a sense of my knee coming up, lengthening my spine, my lower back. And just seeing this circuit, the flow down the sacrum, down the lumbar spine, down the sacrum, and under and into the raising knee. So the more this knee comes up, the more it's sucking my lower spine into it. And then the same thing here. So 1, 2, 3. Now here, just because it stopped moving, it doesn't mean the energy has stopped. I'm still visualizing this knee coming up. And just trying to just relax this area so that that effort can help the lower back to spread across and lengthen and come under into the leg. So we're just really connecting the lower back into the leg properly. Really lengthen the top of the foot. So don't let this happen. Really point the toes and try and feel that your toes are coming under. You're like a ballet dancer on their points. So there's a feeling that the top of my foot is protecting the sole of the foot. So if I can just keep this going, then I change shape, I become a different creature. And then you can just help with the hands. And so I'm pulling my knee up, but really I'm trying to pull at my lower back. I'm trying to pull my sacrum and my tail under. So I just have to relax that so that the effort of my arms can get into that region. And then one more here. 1, 2, 3. Let's just finish by squatting. Yeah, so this, you can really sort of feel the sacral area expanding here. So the belly has to pull in here just to sort of get down. And that will tend to squeeze your attention into the sacrum. Yeah, so just drive the heels down. You intend the heels into the ground with the bottom of your sacrum and your tail. So your tail is trying to get through the heels into the ground. And then just hands on the floor. And now, a bit like working on the stick when we were pulling and pushing, there's a sense that my hands are sort of very gently trying to move against each other. They're sort of pulling away, pushing in, moving backwards and forwards. They're even twisting. Yeah. So there's a sense that I'm sort of just working the ground the same way I was working the stick in order to get energy flowing around the system, my body standing on this ground. Yeah, so we're used to the hands being sort of dexterous and you know, they're used to sort of doing delicate tasks. And so it's easy to feel. So what we would like is that when we're standing, like in riding horse, there's the same sort of thing happening between the feet. Yeah, so I'm not just standing on this stable, solid ground. There's a sense that my feet are trying to destabilize it. Are trying to get it just to move a little bit. Okay, now let's just bring a little bit of weight forwards. So feel the arms filling up with strength, a supportive strength from the ground. It's like the arms are filling up with water. So slowly from the ground, this hardness is extending upwards. And the opposite in the legs. So my legs can drain of that supportive strength that they're so accustomed to containing. So I'd like my legs and my feet to have a little bit of the delicacy of my arms and my hands. Yeah, so let's just rock now, just rock back onto the feet. Yeah, so you can feel that when you're just working the ground gently with your hands, you can feel how that is actually activating the heart. So the heart is it's almost like it's being encouraged to sort of break into little pieces. To crumble a little bit. Yeah. So it's the same when we work the ground with the feet, then basically you're doing the same thing to the sacrum. We're just splitting it into lots of little parts
which can then articulate and do work. And just feel the spine. So this is as close as we get to the fetus pose of yoga, or the child's pose, you know, where you're just curled up on the ground on your knees. So that is just really important. We're just, you know, so for me, you know, I think it was like the first lesson. You know, John told us that in Tai Chi they talk about going back to the womb. You know? So he was saying it in relation to the movements of Tai Chi, that like you're floating around in this fluid, and the arms are just making these very natural shapes. But it's also like getting back to the spine of the fetus, the spine that hasn't yet become S-shaped. Because it's largely the S shape of the spine that is responsible for the ego. So without the bum sticking out and without that excess tension in the lower back, then you wouldn't be throwing energy up into your head all the time. And so you wouldn't be thinking. Okay, so let's stand up again. So one last time. And just into riding horse again. So rooting down through the heels. So a real feeling for the ground. A feeling for the ground in its mothering aspect. So the mother opens up in order to draw the child in. The father opens up in order to leave the house and kill something, so they have something to eat. So we want to feel the earth drawing me into her. Not just this impersonal force of gravity that's just impressing upon me, but a real compassionate draw. I'm being encouraged to flow into the ground. Sense that the earth has a dantian, that the earth has this central drawing organ. And then you can just feel your own dantian, this central pull that's actually just drawing the world towards you. You're becoming attractive, not by putting makeup on and showing the world how beautiful you are. For me, that's repulsive. When I first moved here, one of the classes, this guy was there. He's a lovely guy. I'm still in touch with him. And he sort of came up after the class and said, "Oh, how do you like Israel?" "Yeah, it's great." "What do you think of the Israeli women?" I said, "Yeah, they're beautiful." And they are. And he thought for a while. He says, "Yeah, beautiful, but not attractive." And it's just so true, because it's a beauty that pushes you away. It doesn't draw you in. You don't want to go in and acquaint yourselves with them. So what we want is a something that's shrinking in, so that you're becoming attractive. The world becomes inquisitive and wants to see, oh, that looks interesting. And then just drawing it up. So, you know, the way we've been doing. So I pull here, that pulls me into this foot, and then I pull here, and that pulls this foot up. And now, making sure that when I straighten my legs, my bum doesn't go out. So I straighten the legs, and that really just, it tucks the bum under and drives my heels really strongly and firmly into the ground. And so it just gives you a sense of sort of just leaning back a little bit. We're so used to straightening the legs and it doing this, that when we don't do that, it feels like we're falling backwards. Yeah. So just. And again, it's just a feeling of being contained. Being contained and, you know, reticent, or, you know, just held back a little bit. You don't advance until you're invited to.